Well, hello, welcome back to the channel. You've been watching here on this D17 series. We've got the new clutch installed there on the replacement engine, and you can see over my shoulder. But in this video, we're going to be installing that engine into the chassis so we can get that thing ready to get the the power steering pump installed, all that good stuff. So let me flip around here and show you what we got in store. All right, so we got engine up here on the cherry picker and it is ready to go. So if we look over here on the bell housing, we are ready to slide it in. Once we get that thing installed there, then we can go through and get a few parts replaced on it. One of those would be the section right here for the distributor. So basically from this point backward, we're going to replace this with the setup that was on the old engine that had the power steering pump, which is sitting right here on the bench. So in order to do that, there's some timing components that's going to be involved here to make sure that everything is in time. So once we get it in place, then we will go ahead and spin it around until we get compression stroke up on number 1 top dead center cylinder, and then that should line us out inside the distributor cap with where our rotor is, and at that point we should be in time. So then we can start disassembling a few things and seeing where the timing marks are up underneath that front cover. So I'm hopeful that where the governor cap is right here, that we can pull that off and we'll be able to see our gearing inside there and get that thing lined up. If not, it's not a big deal. We can simply use the distributor, know where number 1 cylinder, which in this case is right here, is at, and we should have our rotor pointed right at that to fire it. So we can spin the distributor bottom shaft around until we get lined up. We can slide it in place, and that's going to get us pretty close. Once we get the engine fired up, which won't be in this video, then we can put the timing light on it and see how close we are and then adjust accordingly. So a little bit going on there with that that's fairly technical, and I'll be referring back to our manual on that just to make sure that I don't miss anything. So for now, let's just go ahead and get this thing slid over there and get it inserted into the bell housing and get everything secured. So we're going to flip over to time-lapse camera for this. There's not a whole lot of discussion on that, so we'll just go ahead and get that knocked out right now. All right, so you're watching there on the time-lapse camera. That engine was not as easy to put in as what I thought it was going to be. What ended up happening was a couple of the connections from the bell housing onto the adapter plate. So remember, this adapter plate was already on this engine. That stud that came through, and then over here on the other side, which you cannot see, but right in this cavity is a pin that was on the bell housing side. Those 2 cavities had just a little bit of just dirt and stuff in there, and it would not allow it to freely slide together like what the plate that was on here would allow it to do, because it was clean and it had came directly off of it. So I don't like to do it, but I've got a couple of my bolts started up there to just kind of hold me in place, and then I worked it back and forth, and then I went back here on the PTO shaft because I want to make sure that I wasn't in a bind, and just put me a big wrench on that thing, and I would spin the entire system up through there and make sure that I was engaged into the clutch. In the beginning, I thought maybe that my clutch disc was just down. I was not engaging in the splines, but I actually was all right with that. So I was able to spin that back there, which turned the engine over and allowed me to go ahead and get everything slid back in place. So anyway, that is completed at this point in time. I've got it secured with several bolts all the way around. There's some at the bottom that will get connected up whenever the front end goes back underneath this. So for now, I'm going to work on trying to get my timing set, and that way we can go ahead and pull off this distributor section right here and get that power steering unit installed. So let me start messing with that here for just a little bit, and then we'll cut back in here. All right, so the first thing that we need to do is find the compression stroke on cylinder number 1 and bring it up on top dead center. A couple ways to do that. One, you could pull your spark plug out, put a compression tester in there, or even put your thumb over the hole, spin the motor around, and when you feel the pressure pushing your finger away, you know that you're coming up on compression stroke. The other way to know is to watch the valve train. So when that cylinder is coming up on compression stroke, both the exhaust and inlet valves are closed, which means if we're watching up here underneath our valve cover, we'll see that both of the tappets are clear. They're actually ready for you to adjust what the clearance would be at that point. So I think that's the method that I want to use. I want to go ahead, I've got to put a new valve cover gasket on this thing anyway because it's leaking, or has been. And so I think that's just going to make it the simplest. Also, this thermostat housing, you can see both or all 3 of these bolts snapped off. I've got a replacement for that, so I'm going to pull this off of the head. With the valve cover and this out of the way, that's going to give me a nice area right there to be able to work and get that cleaned up. But then we can just kind of inspect the top side as well, make sure that our valve clearances are set while we're in there messing around with it. So with that said, that's going to be my next step. Go ahead and pull this valve cover off, and then we'll take it from there. All right, so we're taking the valve cover off here, and I had to clean off the outer edges of that, and also saw there where the oil had been leaking. So cleaned off the top of the head and took the vacuum cleaner there to just kind of suck up any of the leftover cork gasket that was there. And then I got here on the front there where the starter ring gear is on the flywheel, and then turned that motor over, try to bring it up on number 1 top dead center compression stroke. So that's going to end the video for the install of the engine. The next video is going to get deep into the timing of this motor. So stick around, there's more coming up on that. Thanks for watching it. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time.